This In the Wild with Chris. When I'm out in the wild, I really enjoy a cup of coffee. In Sweden we call this a fika, which means a small coffee break where you have a little snack. Don't necessarily need to drink coffee with it, but just a small break, either by yourself or with some friends. But when I'm out in the wild, I always bring along some kind of coffee. Now, preparing coffee in the wild, there are different methods. I usually use four. I use instant coffee, I use a Mocha pot, I use French press, and I've started doing Cowboy coffee. And I'm going to show you these methods and a little bit about the pros and cons of each. Now, instant coffee is made out of freeze-dried coffee, and you can buy them either in these one-portion bags or in bigger containers. I usually buy a bigger container and put enough coffee for a good hike in this plastic peanut butter jar. To make the coffee, all you need to do is open the bag, pour it in a cup, have some water, stir it around a little bit, and coffee. Now, what are the pros of this? Well, it's quick. I mean, it's easy to carry along and easy to make. In a tactical situation, this is the way to go. It gives you some warmth, and it gives you caffeine. What are the cons of it? Well, it's not the best tasting coffee. It's quite good when you're out like this, but drink it at home? No. Now, a favorite of mine is this Mocha pot. This is a stainless steel Mocha pot that I use at home on the stove, but also out in the wild. Usually when I'm car camping or kayaking or something like that, because it's a little bit heavy. Add some weight to your pack. Consists of three parts. You have the coffee pot itself, you have a coffee container, and a water container. You add water up to about this plug here. Put in the coffee filter. Pour in the coffee. Goes pretty much up to the top. Give it a slight press. Screw back the top. And put on the stove, a gas stove, or you can put on the embers of a fire pit. It just takes a couple of minutes to boil up, where the water heats up, goes through the coffee grounds in the filter, and boils up into the pot. After a few minutes, the water boiled up through the coffee, creating a very nice and aromatic coffee. Very nice. When I'm out car camping, I usually bring along a French press. They're kind of fragile. They're made out of glass, so that's why I only bring it when I'm car camping. But it makes great coffee. You fill up the coffee to the first line. Then you boil up some water. When the water is boiling, you pour it over the coffee. Want to give it a stir around. And then you let it sit for about 5 minutes to let the grounds mix up with the water. Now, my size French press here is good for about 4 people for breakfast. If you're fewer, you might want to pour it into a thermos after you've done to keep it warm, since the glass doesn't really insulate that well. After it's been sitting for a couple of minutes, you take the press and gently press down. And when you hit the bottom, time for serving. Now this makes really good coffee. I use a special grind made specially for French press coffee. A little bit coarser grind, but it makes a great coffee. So, what are the pros and cons of French press? Well, the taste is great. You get a good amount. I mean, this is enough for 4 people. The cons are that it's a fragile pot. I only bring this when I'm car camping and keep the pot from breaking. Now, Cowboy coffee you can make at home, but I prefer to find a really good setting, like this one. What you need to make Cowboy coffee is you need a pot. It could be an open pot or a coffee pot like this. You need these ground beans. It's been raining a lot for the last couple of days, so I brought out some dry firewood. Now you want to get the fire started and make up a bed of coals so you can put your coffee pot on. So now we're starting to get a nice bed of coals here. It's time to start boiling the water. In my case, I measure up about, this cup is about 4.5 deciliters. Measure that up, pour it in the pot. Put it on the fire to boil. Now the measurements I like is pretty strong coffee. So for each deciliter and a half, I take 2 spoons of coffee. So for a cup like this, I take 6 spoons. Now we got a good boil. Use a glove, so I'm careful not to scald myself on the hot kettle. Now I add 6 spoons of coffee. Give it a stir. And here I give it a couple of minutes to soak in the coffee grounds. After I let it sit for about 5 minutes, it's time to put it back on. And just bring it up to simmer, not a full boil. Starting to simmer here. Time to take it off. This is when you can add just a little splash of cold water. Helps break the surface tension. And if you have any grounds floating, they will sink to the bottom. Time to pour it. And this is how a Cowboy coffee should be enjoyed. In an enamel cup next to a campfire. So thanks to Tobbe and Benny who got me hooked on Cowboy coffee. Well, that will wake up the dead. I hope you enjoyed this film. If you did, please give it a like, share it, and feel free to leave any comments. Till next time, this is In the Wild with Chris, and I'm chilling out.